Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Right Guys podcast where we're asking Tim Walz, what's going on? And now your host, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
I look up. I'm on the screen a little bit. It's all good.
It just stopped. I like it played the whole minute 58 or something, then it just went to us. And I was like, well, I'm in the intro. Might as well just keep going.
It's all good. It's all good. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Max McGuire here with Mr. Producer Josh Hammerling.
Hey, man, I had a great opening. I was going to say Tim Walz has some splaining to do.
Yeah.
Tim Walz has some splaining to do today.
He does. And there are too many allegations now dropping against him to even kind of count and cover. Also, Kamala Harris, allegations that she plagiarized a huge section of her book. That's dropping. That just dropped right before air. Haven't had time to read into that, but again, rings true. Donald Trump has ghostwriters, so he basically sits down with ghostwriters, says what he wants the story to be about. They help him write the book, and then he tells them what to edit, what to change, and then it goes out. Pretty standard stuff in the industry. But you kind of get into that trap when you write your own book, that you start plagiarizing things. Not good.
No, like that's the kind of stuff that gets you kicked out of university, gets you fired at jobs, gets you sued. Right? That's the other part. Is like, it causes more problems than good. You think if you've got an editor that perhaps they do some due diligence and they make sure that you're actually not plagiarizing on top of it. So everybody that was involved with this book was either shady or completely incompetent. There's only those two options, right? And it's par for the course for Kamala Harris. I mean, I wasn't border czar. I am border czar. I was never border czar. I was maybe border czar. It doesn't shock me, but
changes every couple days. So we're going to talk a little bit about this stuff, but obviously the craziest news to drop, the craziest news that has dropped is these new allegations against Tim Walz. And I'm not talking about how he can't figure out how to load a shotgun, because we've seen that is true. He doesn't know how to load a shotgun.
Correct.
We're not talking about how the campaign seems to have produced a video that makes it seem like he took a shot on his hunting excursion yesterday, when the evidence suggests that he didn't. And his campaign has even admitted that he didn't take a shot. Not talking about that. We're talking about new allegations that have started coming out from a Twitter investigator. Now, it always feels weird talking about this. DocNet YouTube. I'll go ahead and put his Twitter account on the screen. But this is what he does. He focuses on people that need investigating. He has 342,000 followers. He's not just some random person. He focuses on child trafficking, child abuse cases. So that's what he kind of focuses on. And in the last couple months, someone has reached out to him with a pretty shocking claim that when he was a student at Tim Walz's school, he befriended Tim Walz and was brought by Tim Walz to an Indigo Girls concert, which at the time was one of the only gay-friendly kind of concerts. Went to an Indigo Girls concert, had sexual relations with Tim Walz, that Tim Walz brought him to a gay bar to try and open him up, that Tim Walz and his wife let him sleep in their house, and that his mother and father complained to the school right around the time that Tim Walz got into that drunk driving mess and was asked to leave the school district.
Wow.
They accepted his resignation.
Wow.
Now, these are all wild accusations, wild claims.
Yeah.
And we have to say that, like any claim that has not been completely substantiated and proven, these are just allegations.
Yes.
But what's very interesting about these allegations, and perhaps unique to them compared to some of the other people that come out of the woodwork against, say, Trump or other people, is that elements of this have already been proven true. So
it's crazy.
Let's go through the timeline of this DocNet YouTube this investigator. So back on August 1st, someone reached out to Doc. That's what he goes by, Doc.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before Tim Walz was even picked as the vice president. And he said, candidate. And this is what the guy wrote in. If Tim Walz is the VP pick of Kamala Harris, I have information on him that is of a personal nature, as he was a teacher of mine at Alliance High School in Nebraska. If you want to know more about this, let me know. My name is redacted. My name is redacted. Doc responded, I highly doubt Tim Walz is going to be the pick. I don't think there is any way possible that she does not pick Shapiro. Anyway, so around that, you can see this guy is skeptical.
Yeah.
He's skeptical about this claim, this allegation, and saying it couldn't possibly be true. Couldn't possibly be true because they're not going to pick Tim Walz.
Not even going to happen.
Not even going to happen. Not even going to happen. Well, fast forward a week, she picks Tim Walz, and this guy says, Doc, I'm sorry I'm bothering you. If you could just hear me out, I can prove what I'm saying. I'm not doing this for attention. I'm not doing this to relive one of the worst times in my life. I am doing this because I cannot emotionally or physically take seeing this man almost daily over the next 4 years. Here's my phone number, redacted. Please call me. When you hear what I have to say, you will have no doubt. I don't want to put it in writing. Please, Doc.
Wow.
So they had that call.
Yeah.
And the person coming forward says, writes him an email. Dear Doc, thanks for the call. I will lay out in detail what has happened to me. I was 14 years old when I met Tim Walz. Like many normal kids, I was very confused about many things. My emotions were that of a typical teenager. Tim and Gwen Walz befriended me. I was a loner. They made me feel special. Tim Walz started telling me secrets about himself. He told me I could trust him with anything. I was very shy and having difficulty. Tim and Gwen extended an invitation for me to go to a concert with them in March of 1995. When we got to the concert, it was just Tim Walz and me. The concert was the Indigo Girls, who I knew nothing about. During the concert, he started to explain to me the meaning behind the lyrics. The entire time he started explaining to me that I was gay. The entire time he explained to me that I was gay, he was rubbing my back up and down in what I thought was a comforting gesture. Then the next thing I know, I remember feeling tired, overwhelmingly tired. The rest of the night, I am not comfortable telling you right now. I'm going to put it in a letter. It is difficult for me right now.
Good night.
The response from the doc, I understand how difficult this must be for you. I just want to be clear. You were 14 years old when you went to this concert. You were alone with Tim Walz. You were served alcohol. Concert was in March 1995, Indigo Girls, Nebraska. What was the name of the concert arena? What happened after the concert? I'm emailing the Walz and Harris campaign for comment. I'm emailing the VP account to advise her. I will be sending emails to the major news networks. They will not want the story, but let's see. I am going to help you. But you need to understand this is going to get very dicey. Things need to be done in a methodical manner. I need facts that only you would know.
Good Lord.
So what are your first takeaways so far having us read through this so far?
Well, if true, it sounds like a typical predator move. You find a loner kid. You start telling him stories. You share secrets. You make him think that you have some sort of common ground. You can trust him. And then he starts influencing the kid, allegedly. And it just feels like classic grooming methodology.
Yeah.
But what really grabs me is that he mentions Tim and the wife.
Yes.
Like it was a team effort. And that's what makes it really, what really bothers me is this felt like a team effort.
Yes.
Can't stress that enough.
Yeah. And this is what people have often made allegations about, that there are often teachers in schools who set up gay straight alliance clubs, which Tim Walz did after this incident, right?
Wow.
Where teachers, under the guise of wanting to help kids who are feeling alone, feeling like they're gay and they're not appreciated and they don't have friends, giving them some sense of belonging, And it's called the GSA, the Gay Straight Alliance. The goal being that if you're straight, even if you don't think you're gay, you can still be an ally.
Sure.
And one of the concerns has been that some teachers around the country who run these clubs might use it as an opportunity to try and guide kids towards that sexual orientation, towards that lifestyle. Who wouldn't be there, who wouldn't even be considering it had it not been for that teacher's guidance. So I know a lot of kids who were gay and appreciated those clubs and kind of the camaraderie and the sense of belonging that those clubs gave them.
Yeah, sure.
I also know people who were kind of encouraged to go to those clubs who weren't gay at all.
Yeah.
So you can see here. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the only problem I have with those clubs is when they go from being a place where you can have communion and camaraderie with friends and people your age learning about sexuality. The problem I have is when it becomes a place where people start harming kids and they know it.
Yeah.
And if these allegations are true, it's damning and it's gross for Walz. Sorry, Max, I just have to get that out there.
Yeah.
Again,
if these allegations are true, it's damning and it's gross for Walz. And obviously they should put him under the jail. Not in the jail. They should put him under the jail. Now, what we know from Doc, this Twitter investigator, is that he was having a really hard time finding proof that this concert happened. Now, if you remember, when Donald Trump was accused of raping some woman in a department store dressing room, right? That was the accusation. That woman, according to court records, couldn't remember where, when it happened, what year, what month, right? Couldn't remember any of that. So the media has treated that as true. Donald Trump lost a civil settlement without that woman even being able to claim when and where it specifically happened. This allegation doesn't lack those details. This allegation makes a very specific claim that he brought this underage kid to a concert. If you can prove that Tim Walz brought underage kids to concerts and that wasn't well known before this claim was made, that could be seen as substantiating the allegation. So this investigator, this Twitter investigator, the Doc, is struggling to find evidence that this concert happened. Now it's hard. 1995, kind of early internet 1.0. Not a lot finds its way on the net. Not every one of these concerts wasn't put down in a record, right? It's very hard to find this stuff.
It is.
So as he says in this email back to the accuser, I'm emailing the Walz-Harris campaign for comment. I'm emailing the VP for comment. That was August 9th. That was August 9th. By August 20th, the key allegation that he had been brought to an Indigo Girls concert as an underage kid by Tim Walz, his teacher, was substantiated. The Tim Walz team went to the New York Times and other outlets and told them that Tim Walz did this with a kid. Not the unwanted sex, not the grooming, but they substantiated a piece of the claim that Tim Walz took an underage child to a concert. Not only that, they admitted that Tim Walz and Gwen Walz let this underage child sleep over in their house. Those were two elements of the accusation that, remember, this Twitter investigator couldn't prove. It is interesting that after he told the Walz-Harris campaign he was working on this story, a week and a half later, all of a sudden, their team is out in the New York Times trying to paint this as a good thing of how great Tim Walz was to help gay students down a path, showing them that there can be belonging, that there can be friendship. taking them to a concert when they feel alone, letting them sleep over their house when they're getting back late from that concert. They spun it. They tried to get out in front of the story and spin it to be a good thing.
Unbelievable. So you said that he's just trying to confirm that there was an actual concert that
It's
year.
confirmed. They confirmed
Yeah.
it.
March 29th, 1905 at the Pershing Center.
Oh, you found it?
Yeah. Setlist.fm, and it'll tell you that there was one March 29th, which is right in the middle of the school year.
And this is from the New York Times. She and her husband had grown close to a gay student years earlier in Nebraska, where the Walzes met each other teaching at a public school.
Wow.
The couple took the student to an Indigo Girls concert, a spokeswoman for Miss Walz said.
Couple did it.
The rare queer-friendly event at that time.
Yeah.
It is not normal now. It was not normal then for teachers to take a underage student away from their family, away from school grounds, to a concert on the basis of that concert being supportive of a sexual identity.
Think how far they had to travel for that to occur, because now they've crossed state lines. If these allegations are true, it goes from being a state matter to a federal matter too, because they went from Wisconsin to Nebraska. And this is the only student that we know of. They're acting as a team. They're going to events that are in line with what we would presume would be their lifestyle, right? Like the grooming lifestyle is very much into just trying to introduce counter ideas to what youngsters understand, right? Especially during times of sexual development, both mentally and physically, right? Like, this is unbelievable, man.
Imagine, let's just take the gay part out of this. Imagine there was a teacher who befriended, let's say a female teacher who befriended a young girl who didn't think that boys found her attractive. And her idea was to take that young girl to a concert where she knew there would be promiscuous men and there would be flirtation and there would be hooking up, right? That would still be bad, right? It has nothing to do with the sexual orientation of this at all. What this has to do with is it is plainly weird and unacceptable for a teacher put in a position of trust to take a student to a concert. Full stop. That's not okay, right? Taking everything else out of it, it's not okay. It's not normal. But to take that student to a concert because you thought it might be good for their sexual orientation and their awareness of their sexual orientation is also weird. Not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Teachers are paid to teach kids math, English, science, history, all these subjects. It is not the teacher's job to help that student figure out whether he likes P's or V's. It's not the teacher's job.
No, it's not. That's back in the day, we used to have to sign permission slips. It'd be great if there was one of those just hanging around somewhere.
Yeah.
Did the parents know this was going on?
The other thing. Even back then, there was litigation, fear of litigation. And if a teacher is going to take a child on any excursion, you need a permission slip. You need all this, right?
You had to contact the parents.
So again, taking the allegations out of it completely, the mere admission that they were taking kids to queer-friendly events in the 90s, Josh. We're not talking about this attempt now to insert sexual orientation into everything. We're talking 1995, Josh. 1995.
I was in Nebraska at this time. I know.
In Nebraska.
I was in high school at the same time, man. This is like having your teacher saying, hey, buddy, you want to go to a concert and maybe learn more about yourself? Like the weirdness level on this had to be through the roof. I wouldn't even know how to respond. And most kids back then wouldn't have responded. We didn't have the internet. We didn't even know what a pedophile looked like.
No.
Like there was nothing warning us, right?
People knew the house you should stay away from. That's usually how it was described. Like, hey, this guy, if you see him riding the bike, don't go near him. If you see him in the house, don't go near him. That's usually how it was explained. But the people trying to say, oh, this was completely normal that they did this in 1995 are trying to take the morality of today that they're trying to force on the country, that it's normal for teachers to play the role of teaching your child about the birds and the bees, right?
Yeah.
That it takes a village to raise these kids, so it might as well be the teachers to help them with it. They're trying to take this whole ethos and run it back to make it seem like this happening in 1995 was normal. That was not normal.
No.
That was never normal.
It never was. And especially in the 90s, because there was a higher degree of homophobia at that time. Like at least the words that were said to each other in the 90s would not fly today, right?
No.
But that behavior is the same behaviors today, and it doesn't fly then, and it doesn't fly now.
Pieces on this. There are more pieces on this about how stunning and how forward thinking they were to bring a gay student to an Indigo Girls concert in the 90s.
It's just unbelievable.
It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable behavior at any point in time for anyone to do. Sexual orientation out of it, it's unacceptable behavior.
Yeah.
But the allegations actually get worse.
How? Like how, though? This is already bad enough.
The accuser put together this. Take this for what you will. It doesn't have his name on it. He says that he is consulting a lawyer to see what he should do about this. Here's what it says. Quote, I've decided to make a public statement regarding the relationship between myself and Tim Walz. I also want to make it very clear that I was not the only victim of Tim Walz. I'm hoping that others will come forward. I know of at least one other person who has come forward and has not received the publicity that I am now receiving. I want to give you some of the places that I went with Tim Walz over the course of the time that I was abused and give you some descriptive information of Tim Walz's body.
Oh my
that may be helpful in my claims. The minute that someone says that, then it's like, okay, Tim Walz, pull down your pants. And if the birthmark's where he says it is, right? The minute someone says I can describe his genitalia or I can describe what he looks like with his pants off, the minute that description comes out,
it's wow. It's yeah. I don't know what to say there other than that you had to be there.
I went to 2 concerts with Tim Walz, an Indigo Girls concert, and in July of 1995, I attended a country concert in Omaha with Tim Walz, Alabama.
Omaha?
Mm-hmm. He was in Nebraska. I was one of the students who accompanies Tim Walz and others on his trips to China. When Tim Walz received his DUI, it was after an evening spent with me. I fully expect that Tim Walz is going to retaliate against me and possibly my family. He has become a powerful individual. And I can tell you from experience that Tim Walz is an extremely angry individual when he's challenged on any subject or he is perceived to lose control on anything. I know of at least 2 other students in the time Tim Walz spent at Nebraska that were taken to concerts and other events. In fact, Gwen Walz has made statements that she attended the Indigo concert with myself and Tim. That was not true. It is my belief to this day that Gwen Walz was with another student at that time at the same concert. But I can assure you she was not at the concert with me and Tim Walz. With that being said, Tim Walz has a raised scar on his chest. A raised scar on his chest. I recall a Chinese symbol tattoo on his upper thigh. I remembered he explained to me what it meant, but I do not recall at this time. I also remember a small scar on his left arm that was more like a soft burn. Of course, most people know he has a hearing problem. It is my understanding that has been corrected. I will be engaging an attorney and will be bringing Mr. Walz to a court of law if possible. I will be seeking full legal remedies against Tim Walz. My relationship with Tim Walz stopped being physical in 1996, but we remained in contact until 1999. I have decided that I will be contacting media members through my attorney and will give a public come forward and challenge Tim Walz if that is the route that my attorney would like to go. Many people will attack my claims. Many will doubt my claims. Tim Walz and I know the truth. Between the ages of 14 and 18 years of age, Tim Walz was part of my life. It was a relationship that was unhealthy and has affected my life in some of the worst ways possible. So he has made very specific claims about Tim Walz's scars on his chest, As I said, it is unnatural and unacceptable for a teacher to take a child to a concert. It is equally unacceptable for that teacher to show at any point, for any reason, his bare chest to a student. So whether this is evidence of an illicit sexual experience or Tim Walz flashing himself to students in his class, equally unacceptable for him to if he showed students his chest. Like
that, it's unbelievable, man. Like, he was taking kids to China.
Yes.
And this was for extended periods of time. Do you ever find it shocking that pedos will find ways to get themselves close to children?
Yes.
It's like the bane of some companies that deal with, that are in the kid industry, right? There's always these people seeking you out, right?
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I don't condone it.
Yeah.
But if you like something, it isn't a shock that you would want to create your life
around it,
right?
Yeah.
Like, if someone likes pretty women, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to choose to work as the receptionist at a gym, right? It's not crazy. Yeah. It's not a crazy, it's not a crazy life choice.
No, but it's especially something that pedos do, right? Because they're always on the hunt, which is the kind of the scary part. And if these allegations are true, like, he's fitting the bill, right? Like, all the operandi here are lining up.
Shandy says on Rumble, believe all accusers. Those are the new rules, right? Those are the left's rules. Apparently, you believe all accusers. Now, as I said at the start, these are accusations.
Yeah,
these are not proven beyond any doubt. They're not. It's not even more likely than not that these are true. These are allegations.
Right.
The really interesting part of this to me is that after this person had come forward to this Twitter investigator, and after that investigator had reached out to the VP, Tim Walz, and Kamala Harris for comment, is only after that Tim Walz's team, PR team, told the New York Times that he'd taken a student to a concert.
It's trying to justify past behavior with the
timestamp of that is interesting, and it fits the strategy of, oh crap, we gotta get out in front of this. Let's make it as good as we can make it, right?
It's crazy. It's insane. And how much is there peeps about this on any of the propaganda channels? I used to call them news channels, but really they're propaganda channels. Like, when is CBS finally going to have to report on this, right?
The New Republic is running this headline under the opinion section. MAGA invents its most outrageous Tim Walz conspiracy yet.
That is such... The propaganda machine's quick, dude. Did they have AI on this?
The original headline, that was the change headline. The original headline that Google has archived is MAGA has a new Tim Walz conspiracy. There's just one big problem. So in between when they hit publish and when we're going at it, they took out the part, there's just one big problem. And if you look in this, you cannot find the word problem in this article. Yep, no word, not found. So they're just saying it's not real, that it's outrageous. And let me be clear, it is outrageous that in 1995, a teacher would insert himself, and I say that in not the suggestive way, insert himself in a child's life to guide that child towards a gay lifestyle. That's what this was. They took him to an Indigo Girls concert because they thought he was gay. He thought he was gay. They brought him to an Indigo Girls concert because that was one of the gay-friendly events at the time. This was 1995.
I'm going to take issue with what you just said there. Maybe he thought he was gay, but if true, that couple was taking there to make sure he would become gay. and that he would have a relationship with them, right? If that comes to be true, which is even worse than what you're saying, right? Because for a teacher to go there and to actively try to recruit someone into a lifestyle so that you could violate them sexually is a whole level of disgustingness that we should be hunting down left and right. So yeah, I'm sorry to jump on that, Max, but let's be clear here. If true, these people took a kid to one of these places to groom them. I remember having to go to like jazz concerts as a kid. You had to have the parents' permission slip. They had to have buses take us. They had to have insurance for us before we went out. Like there were records of it. You just couldn't go do these things without somebody saying yes. It was the 90s.
Yeah.
And to take him to that concert and groom and hide it behind a club trying to help kids. I mean, could you he just feels dirty saying it.
Yeah.
It's just unreal.
It is objectively gross. It's objectively gross. Right. And what we're seeing, well, we're not even done. We're not even done with the way that this story is unfolding. This is the school board for Alliance School District. This Twitter investigator, he's not a chump. He went through and actually got minutes. He got pictures of the school board. This is the school board.
Really?
One of the elements of the story that I read in all of this is that, he said that when Tim Walz was caught drunk driving, that was after a night he had spent with the accuser. That's a wild part of this. That's a wild part of this.
Like a binge.
But what I've also seen in this, in reading about this, is that this is about the point that the parents complained. So this is the school. This is the school board for Alliance School District, 1995-1996. This has been presented as minutes for a meeting in March of 1996, the following year.
Damn.
A motion was made by Seabohm and seconded by Cornish to approve the professional leave request of Tim Walz. The motion carried 6-0. So now, if are these real minutes? These are being presented as the minutes.
Yeah.
People are going to have to verify that, but that's interesting. And we knew that this happened, right? The way Tim Walz has said it is he left because of drunk driving. And that's why he had to leave. And that's why he had to try and get his life back together.
Yeah.
But what started to come out from this is that, was it that, or was it the fact that the kids' parents or other kids' parents were complaining about this inappropriate behavior?
Wow. Which would have been typical for the 90s, man. It was easier to ignore it, to make it go away than to do something about it.
So they approved professional leave in March of 1996.
Wow.
These minutes, 1st of July, 1996. A motion was made by Attinger and seconded by Moore to accept the resignations of Tim Walz, Gwen Walz, and Byron Green.
Who's Byron Green?
I don't know. We can look that up.
So a motion was made and seconded, yada, yada, yada. And the motion carried unanimously 6-0. So they passed it, right? I said, okay, all of you can go. Timmy, you're out.
4 months. 4 months after approving him for leave, they accept his resignation.
Interesting.
What's very interesting is, according to these minutes, it looks like they also accepted the resignation of his wife.
I know, which is really interesting.
Now, that is weird. Is it because they know they have to get out of town and she can't be working there either, and just makes sense? Let's all start over.
Yeah, yeah.
That's possible. Or over the course of whatever they were investigating between March and July, they found evidence that implicated her in what they had used to basically put him on leave. Now, if this was only my thinking is, if this was only about drunk driving, you don't force the drunk driver's wife out of school too.
Yeah.
Right? If this was just about drunk driving, him drinking, driving, terrible, don't do it. If that is why he was forced out of school, it doesn't make sense why they would also force his wife out of school.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like it's also just not all about Tim Walz. It sounds like it's about Gwen Walz too, which is an odd, like, Bonnie and Clyde went on a disaster spree. This sounds like they're doing the same thing.
You start looking at this story where she was involved in taking a kid to an Indigo Girls concert.
Separated them, which is odd,
right?
too. Why not all hang out together, have a good time, see if,
So this is the part of it that these allegations have to be proven to the extent that they can be proven, disproven. They're allegations, right?
Yeah.
At this point, unproven.
Yeah.
But to see these allegations come forward, to see him reach out to the campaign for comment, and then them rush to the New York Times to get a story put to make this look as good as possible, that's suspicious. To see these minutes showing that in addition to him being forced out, his wife was also forced out. Again, maybe they just knew they had to leave and she resigned too. Or maybe this wasn't about just drinking and driving, and this was about something more. And they had allegations against him, and the investigation uncovered stuff about her that forced her out too. Wow. Here's the thing. What they've put in the New York Times, that they took a kid to a concert alone to help him discover his sexuality. Wow. If that was uncovered by the school at the time, that would be grounds for firing.
Yeah.
That would be grounds. If the kid's parents say, hey, this teacher took him to a gay concert, this is unacceptable. If that happened, it would make sense for the school to say, okay, you're on leave.
Yeah.
And if the school found out that Gwen Walz was also involved, it would make sense for them to send her packing as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we cannot prove the allegations. But as Channy Pants just wrote in the comments, there's definitely a lot of circumstantial evidence here that is at the very least suggesting that something may have happened. And whether it is as innocent as grown men taking a child that isn't theirs to a concert because they want them to be gay, or the allegations that there was some sexual touching, whether it's either end of the extremes, it's still unacceptable. It's still unacceptable. Like, even if it was as innocent as what they told the New York Times, it's still unacceptable.
And this guy could be a heartbeat away from the president of the United States if Kamala Harris and him get elected, right? He could be vice president of the United States. And what then? What then? And this is the 90s, gang. It's not like we had cell phones or anything where, when they bust pedos now, it's usually because there's an electronic trail. Yeah, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. The hard proof would be in the witness statement, right? Yeah. That's where it's all going to come from. And that's why it's so important that they stay safe. They talk to lawyers, but that's the only way something like this gets proven. And even then, it'll probably be he said, she said in court, right? He said at this point. But the allegation, remember back in the day when they would always say in the media, it's the seriousness of the charge. It's not that it actually happened, but just the seriousness of the charge is enough to make a person not eligible for election or even being considered. I mean, could they charge Tim Walz in a crime here? And will it happen in the next 22 days? Will there be enough movement on this with the media and law enforcement or the law to do anything about it right now? 22 days out. 22 days. That's how long it takes for the next president to be elected. Decide, gang. Decide.
Where I'm falling on this, as I just said, whether it is what the Tim Walz, Gwen Walz team, whether it's how they paint it, or whether it is the other end of that spectrum, these allegations coming forward on Twitter, equally disqualifying. I mean, one, like having sex with students, like that's far more disqualifying. But in a black and white world where it's either okay or not okay, both not okay.
Yeah.
Both not okay.
Yeah.
wherever this story falls in terms of how truthful what elements are of it, the fact that Tim Walz and Gwen Walz have admitted to doing something not okay is itself disqualifying, is itself unacceptable. And you ask, what happens if he's vice president? I guarantee you, if he becomes vice president, Kamala Harris is going to task him with doing something with education. He's a teacher. I bet you that's going to be what he's tasked with, right? I mean, it makes sense.
Wow. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So
yeah.
The question is, what happens if he becomes vice president? He gets put in a position of power over the education system in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable, man. And it just smells like, there's accusations, but with there's smoke, there's fire. And right now, the building is smoking hard in the Tim Walz vice presidential campaign, right? Like they're full fire sale on this, but they're thinking right now, how do we get through the next 22 days, right? We ignore it for how long do you think they'll really ignore it for? The next 24, 72 hours? I mean, they kind of got ahead with it now with the fake stories, but
they're trying to now say it's fake. They're trying to say it's fake.
Yeah.
Now, one of two things is going to happen. They're either just going to say it's fake and claim it's fake,
yeah,
or the Walzes know who this person is. If this happened, the Walzes know who the person is.
Yeah.
You are going to have tremendous pressure being put on this person to recant before they even come forward publicly.
Yeah.
Even though we don't know this person's name, if it's true, if it's true, the Walzes know who they took to that concert.
Yeah.
If they know who they took to that concert, expect the entire weight of the Democrat establishment, expect the entire weight of the mainstream media to fall on this person. I would not be surprised if you see the Tim Walz camp. I would not be surprised if you see the Tim Walz camp actually leak the person's name to the media so they can show up at his house.
Yeah.
Remember when CNN doxed someone for posting a meme of Donald Trump? I think it was the meme of Donald Trump, WWE doing a wrestling move on CNN. They doxed that person, tried to ruin his life over something that just made CNN look silly. Do not be surprised if they try to use the entire weight of the establishment media, establishment politics to come down on this person. Because again, we don't know who he is, but if there's even a kernel of truth to this, they know who this is.
Yeah. Yeah. And what then? Because that's where you always hear about these posts that people put out, like, I'm not suicidal. Remember that. Because the groups with the money behind this they're bloodthirsty. Like, they're no longer at the point where we've got to pretend that they want to hurt people to make sure that, excuse me, that they're going after people. They're bloodthirsty. They will do whatever it takes to keep the apparatus going. And that's where that party has gotten to. In our political history, the Democratic Party has got to the point where they will destroy you in the media. They'll destroy you financially with the law. And if they can't get you there, they'll just destroy you. You're muted, my friend.
Sorry, I missed a page. I skipped a page. So this is being accused. This is being alleged to be from this person. Again, they've redacted it. But let's read it. Here is my story, Doc. During the concert, I became extremely tired. I don't know if it was the alcohol. I don't know if it was if something was put in the alcohol, but I remember dancing with Tim Walz. We were slow dancing. Oh,
kidding.
Let me real quick put this over here. We were slow dancing. I remember his hands being inside of my pants a little. He was telling me that it was natural. He was telling me that it was okay. No. After the concert, Gwen was not to be found. Tim said he would take me home, but we would stop off and get something to eat. Being a 14-year-old, I thought this meant McDonald's. To be honest, I thought I was having a great time. I thought I was beginning to think that I was gay. When we stopped to get food, it was a tavern. I never realized till I was older, there was actually a gay bar. There were only a couple women in the entire place, but they were not really women. I don't remember how long we were there. I don't remember the drive back home at all. The next thing I remembered, I was naked and I was in the home of Tim Walz. He was giving me oral sex. I remember it only took seconds, maybe a minute for me to ejaculate. I thought this meant I was gay. I thought this meant I really was gay. I did not understand it was just a physical reaction. I remember being upset. I thought Gwen would walk in. He told me not to worry about that. He told me Gwen would not disturb us. He kept reassuring me that everything was okay and that this was normal and that he was helping me see that I was really gay. The next morning, I woke up on their couch. Gwen was there. They made breakfast and they acted like nothing happened at all. Tim took me home. I honestly thought I had feelings for him. I thought he was showing me life. I remember feeling so confused yet so free. I thought this was part of becoming a man. I remember a definitive bump scar on his chest. He told me all kinds of secrets. He told me he was almost deaf from his time in the military. He told me he had served in the Persian Gulf War. When I got home, I did not tell my parents anything, but I thought I had feelings for Tim Walz. He told me many secrets about himself. At least I thought they were secrets. He told me he was bisexual. He explained what that meant. I would continuously see Mr. Walz during 1985. I spent a lot of time whenever I could. I can't remember the exact date, but I moved to another county in the summer of 1995. My parents were becoming suspect. In September of 1995, they came to see me. He came to see me. We were drinking. He had gone out that night. We got into an argument when I found out he had planned on taking students to another Indigo Girls concert.
Oh my.
On that night, he left very angry. That is the night he got pulled over.
What the?
Now again, this is someone. This is just like a notes app. This is just someone put this to paper, right? This doesn't mean it happened.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean that it happened beyond a reasonable doubt. But this was sent to this Twitter investigator prior to the Walzes publicizing the story that they let a student sleep on their couch.
How do you justify that? Like, how do you even start answering questions about this when it's being asked? Did you have a student sleep on your couch? Did you take a student?
Let's again put aside the oral sex part, put aside all that. If a student wakes up on their teacher's couch, that alone is grounds for firing.
Yeah.
Right? So what the Walz camp did is they admitted to something, but they're trying to paint it as it was all in good fun. There is no good fun to be had by letting an underage student sleep on their teacher's couch. There is no good fun there.
No. And the thing reads like Gwen isn't just complicit in this. She was helping.
Yeah. That's how it reads.
And they were both teachers at the same school this time. Like this is Crisscross just said in the comment section, this is sick. This is sick. It is.
This is sick. And frankly, I hope this isn't true.
Me too.
Like we talk about these things on the show a lot. It is my sincere hope that this isn't true. I am not going to root for a world where Tim Walz was taking advantage of children. I'm not going to root for that being true. Yeah. I genuinely hope this is false.
Me too.
Because it is not good to hope that something bad happened to a kid because you think that's going to be politically advantageous decades later. So I genuinely hope this isn't true. We got Otto von Wienis back. It's pathetic you believe this. You are losing, have to make up fake stories. I just said, I hope this isn't true.
Yeah, I don't want it to be real.
I don't want it to be real. I want this to be disproven.
Yeah.
Because I do not want to live in a world where Tim Walz did this. Because as he suggested in those emails, he's not the only kid. Tim Walz had a long career across multiple states and multiple school systems, running gay straight alliance clubs, taking kids abroad I truly do not want him to be a sexual predator. I really don't.
I just want him to be a dumbass. I really want him to be a dumbass and just made some dumb choice. Like, I don't want it to be true.
I would love for him to say, yeah, I was stupid. I didn't realize it was a bad idea to bring kids to a gay concert, bring kids to a gay bar, and let kids sleep on my couch underage. I was a knucklehead. I welcome that response because again, I don't want to live in a world where Tim Walz did this to kids. I just don't.
Well, how do you run a campaign now? You know, I mean, how do you, if you're a voter, right, and you're looking at this stuff, I mean, how do you think it's gonna affect the election? Because this, if true, would be totally damning, right? Like this would be the end of it. If
that's the
and
question.
There's 22 days, and that's all that has to. There will be no conclusion to this in 22 days. There just won't be.
No,
like this is it's ultra damning, but it won't be provable until well after.
Oh no,
right? Well after.
It may not even ever be provable.
Correct.
It might never be provable because at the end of the day, you can just say Tim Walz can just say that didn't happen.
Yeah,
that didn't happen.
Yeah,
and there's no way to prove, no way to disprove it. But what's really hard to accept is that according to the Democrats, according to the left, we live in a world where someone can come forward decades later and make an accusation against someone without including details. And the left automatically accepts it.
Right. Kavanaugh,
right? Makes allegations about someone without even attempting to provide verifiable nuggets that you could either verify or disprove. So they're willing to literally jump on the grenade and say, oh, this has to be true. Trump's bad. Then when you have something like this come out, where it's very clear that the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz camp was trying to get ahead of it, to try and spin it in as best a light as possible, where they're admitting to elements of the accusation.
I know, right? Which is crazy.
Like that would be like that would be like Brett Kavanaugh saying, I didn't rape a girl, but I did hook up with this same girl at the party, but it was completely above board. If he had admitted that, then all of a sudden the accusations have legs.
Right. Now you start asking more questions. It just invites more questions at that point, right? What's the next step?
Tim Walz campaign, Tim Walz camp, because this wasn't just the campaign, it's his camp, his wife, him and his wife. If they had said, we never took kids to Indigo concerts, that's wrong. Well, then you have a he said, she said. Then you have that. But the fact that after being notified by this investigator that he's looking into the story, would you care to comment? And within a week and a half, they're running stories verifying elements of the accusation, but spinning it in the best possible light. That to me is far more damning than the accusation itself.
Yeah.
We can't prove whether the accusation is real or not. We can't.
No.
And if this person comes out and says his name and goes on camera, then it's okay. Well, if he's lying, that's the biggest defamation suit ever.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the first thing I was thinking is going to happen. They're gonna sue the crap out of him, man.
If he's lying, it's the biggest defamation suit ever.
But if he's not lying, then there's new questions, right? There's just all this is going to bring up is new questions. And back in the 90s, like I said, we didn't have cell phones. So anytime you wanted to take pictures, like it had to be done on film. It was kind of a very public or intimate product when it comes to photography. You either had to develop your own film or not. And a lot of these pedos used to collect trophies. Let's not forget that there's a lot of psychos out there that collect stuff like that. And if I'm Tim Walz, I'm just burning everything in the house. I'm going to set the house on fire.
There is a Latin saying, falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus. basically saying if you are telling a story and one part of it is proven false, it's okay to accept the entire story to be false.
Sure.
Right? If you're lying about one thing, chances are you're lying about everything.
Yeah.
There isn't really a word for the opposite. Would it be verite in uno, verite in omnibus? If it's true in one, it's true in all. You can't make that assumption, right? You can't make the assumption, oh, well, he said he was raped on a cloudy day. It was a cloudy day, so he must have been raped. You can't do that, right?
Yeah.
But with this case, unlike all of the examples that they've used against Trump, all the examples they've used against Kavanaugh, this is a situation where elements of the accusation have actually been verified by Tim Walz and his wife.
It's not a coincidence. If you're law enforcement, you don't believe in coincidence. Oops, that just happened to be that way. It just happened to be a day. It just happens to line up, right? You'd start sniffing. And it's going to take either somebody who's really brave in law enforcement to make that happen, or this person's going to come forward and levy some sort of lawsuit against Walz. Because is this a civil matter now? And what states did it happen in? Like, is it past the statute on top of that? So even if it did happen, could they just be like, screw you, we did it anyway?
Well, remember what happened in New York? They lifted the statute of limitations to allow a suit to be brought against Trump.
Yeah.
The accusation against Trump, again, she couldn't say when and where it specifically happened. Just remember it happened sometime. Why is it okay to do that for Trump and not for Tim Walz? Listen, if you were let's say you're in New York, SVU, Special Victims Unit, right? Your job is to investigate crimes against children.
Right.
And someone, after they reach adulthood, comes in and says, my teacher brought me home, had oral sex with me, raped me, and let me sleep on his couch.
After I thought I was drugged.
Yeah. And then the cops, you and SVU, go to the accused and you say, did you do this? He said, yeah, I brought him to my house to sleep on my couch, but I totally didn't rape him. If that's the banter, you don't end the investigation.
No.
You don't end the investigation.
Not at all.
If someone says, hey, I was a kid, this person took advantage of me in his house, had me sleep on his couch. If they verify the couch part, you keep investigating.
Yeah. Is there anybody else who might have done this? That's my next question. Did this happen more than once? Do you have the tickets still? People used to keep tickets, stubs.
Yeah.
Of places they went. That was something to do in the 90s. Like the 90s was different. Now, if you grew with it,
Predators do that too. Predators will
absolutely they'll keep trophies. You bet they will. Man,
you and I might not save a ticket stub from an Indigo concert, Indigo Girls concert in 1995. Otto von Wiener said, how dare you call Tim Walz guilty? I didn't call Tim Walz guilty, but I said that by his own admission, he did something that was unacceptable.
Yeah.
By his own admission, him and his wife's own admission, they took a kid outside of school to a gay aligned concert to try and help him awaken to his sexual orientation, and then had him sleep on their couch. The evidence of that element of the accusation comes from their own admission, except instead of a confession, they're bragging about it because they were so ahead of their time of helping kids awaken to their inner sexual identity, right? They're bragging about it. But they've already admitted to something that if this came out today would be a crime.
Yeah. And let's not forget, whoever they are makes a claim that there's more than one. And if they both went to the concert that night, it makes me wonder if this other person's going to have a statement that might be somewhat reflective of what happened to victim one. Yeah. And as an investigator, that would be your due diligence, right? That would be what's required of you because justice must be served.
Otto von Wiener says, how do you know it wasn't consensual? So we're not going to get into this, but there's two things here. A 14-year-old generally cannot consent to have a sexual encounter with an adult. Generally unacceptable. The places where it's okay are if you have a pre-existing minor relationship. So if you are with someone as a 17-year-old and she's 16, right? 17-year-old boy, 16-year-old girl, if they've established a pre-existing relationship, when that boy turns 18, they can keep dating in many states because they have a pre-existing underage relationship. That doesn't exist here. The second element of this is that there is an unequal power dynamic. To have a teacher allegedly engaged in this behavior with a student, consent, and this isn't my thinking, this is according to leftist sociologists, right? Women's studies professors. In this situation where you have an unequal power dynamic, a student cannot consent to have any relationship with someone who holds power over them. And now this is generally true in all elements of society, right? This is why companies don't let you generally have relationships with a boss and their subordinate, right?
Yeah.
Because it's unacceptable. You can't have that. You can't have that. So when the power dynamic is so unbalanced, the argument is you cannot consent to that because the kid could fear, oh, if I say no, he's going to fail me. Oh, if I say no, he's going to hold me back a year. Otto says, why are you being anti-LGBTQ? No, I never said I did. What we said at the start, you missed it, is that if a teacher did this with any student of any sexual orientation, it's equally unacceptable.
Yeah.
If a teacher brought a female student to a kiss show and said, hey, go backstage and awaken your inner sexuality with Simmons, right? That's equally unacceptable.
Yeah.
It's not the role of a teacher, period, full stop. Where they fall on the sexual spectrum is irrelevant to the fact that it is a crime to engage in this behavior with the children. It is a crime for a teacher to do this with a student. And it's just patently unacceptable.
You know, I was in high school about the time this stuff was going on. Like I had to be like sophomore, junior, somewhere in there. Like I was in high school, right? And we had a health class. And it really just kind of covered, how it works. And it never got into like gender of any kind, like an identity of any kind. It was just never brought up, right? No one really talked about whether you were gay or straight or any of that stuff. They just kind of showed you how the mechanics worked and you moved on. And that's what it was in the 90s. And it was probably a standard curriculum.
Yeah.
And I would argue that if the Waltzes were engaging in something different, it was outside of the curriculum of the school for sure. And that there would have been grounds for just termination by the standards at that time. But to sit there and try to inject today's standards into something that happened a long time ago to justify having a kid waking up on your couch.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And this is the problem we're seeing from the left now. What Otto Wienis just posted on YouTube, they were trying to help the kid. This is something that we will just never be able to see eye to eye with. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is why I generally like to think that we can exist as a country, that we could basically find common ground, and that no matter what happens in this election, Trump wins, Kamala Harris wins, we'll still be a country, we'll still be a nation, and we'll still be able to advance forward hand in hand, trying to make this grand experiment with democracy work. But then you have people like this guy who, in the face of unquestioned evidence and admission from Tim and Gwen Walz that they did something patently inappropriate with an underage child, next to the allegations, still just allegations, that it actually went beyond what they admitted to and reached criminal behavior, you still have people like this saying that, oh, well, actually, if you balance it on the scales, it was a net positive because they were trying to help them. And then you realize that crazy idiots like this want this nationwide. They want teachers to play this kind of role in every child's development. They want every teacher from coast to coast, Hawaii, Alaska included, to be able to set a child aside and help them discover their own sexuality. That is unacceptable. And we cannot live in a society where most of us say, yeah, teachers shouldn't be like helping underage kids have sex, and have people like this say it's actually for the better. They were trying to help the kid.
Yeah, but Max, it's different today because now there's so many more things they throw at him. The hormones, right? And then
Yeah.
literature that verifies uh, things with these kids at a time when they don't even understand their own bodies, right? And they're encouraged now to get, male genital mutilation. And it's crazy, and it's so different than what it was in the 90s to what it has become. And to kind of hear that person say that, it doesn't surprise me because they drink the system, right? The
Yeah.
Kool-Aid is strong in them. They've bought in. And like, do we want more of that? Do you want
Yeah.
more of that in society? Do you want that in the halls of the White House? Do you want the
No.
president of the Senate to be an alleged pedophile? What happens if he becomes a convicted pedophile as vice president? Can it happen?
Otto says, why are you so obsessed with kids? Why is it that in the face of this credible accusation, why is it in the face of this credible accusation, you're more than comfortable with turning a blind eye and saying they were trying to help the kid? That is part and parcel what every sexual predator says about any criminal action he or she takes with a child. Oh, I was doing it for the kid, trying to help the kid. It is so uncomfortable. I don't know how we can live in a country where there are just people who are pro grooming. I don't know how we do this, Josh. I don't
Remember
know
NAMBLA,
how
the
we
North
survive this.
American Man Boy Love Association?
Yeah.
Like it's all part and parcel of it, right? When did it become okay with people to do this stuff and team up, right? When did politics start getting to the point where you're willing to look away at somebody's uh, sexual deviance with children? You're willing to ignore that? Do you
Yeah.
want more of that? Because when you elect those people, you get more of it. Because if you don't rule yourself, you get ruled by your lessers, right? That's why
Yeah.
everyone should be involved in politics. Because I think that if a person is doing that sort of stuff for kids, I don't want them leading the nation, right? They become lesser people.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion. I if you don't like it, I don't care anymore, right?
Yeah.
How long was the right always guilted into feeling like every emotion and every stance we had was some sort of anti something, right? It was
Yeah.
anti-gay, it was anti-race, it was anti acceptance, it was anti anything, right? And now they just try to alienate my point of view, right?
Yeah.
This is about who controls the point of view, and I don't know. I'm at the end of it, Max. I've decided that there's not much more they can start taking away.
No.
And we're not going to have much left. They're spending all of the money, and this is just one more of those pieces in the whole thing. And listening to that, so I'm just so pissed off. I'm just going off on a tangent here, but it's just,
I know.
do we want more of it? Do we want more of it? The answer is no.
We had other things to talk about, but we're not going to get that today. We'll have to get that later in the week. Donald Trump's winning. Kamala Harris is losing. They're going to get really desperate. They're going to try and smear Donald Trump. We know what's happening. We know what's coming. It's just hard to talk about the horse race when this is the story and people like this Otto guy are literally trying to gaslight us and say it's normal for teachers to take underage children alone to concerts and to have them sleep over at their house. It wasn't normal in 1995. It wasn't normal in 2005. It wasn't normal in 2015. And guess what? It's not normal in 2024. It never was, and it never will be normal. And as long as people like this Otto guy in the comment section are going to fight to make that normal, I promise you, for every one of these people, there will be 10 more, 20 more ready to stand up against him. Give you the final word.
22 days. People say it's the most important election ever, but Could be one of the last.
Could be one.
What's that?
It could.
Yeah.
I mean, if this guy has his way, this is what we'd all have going for us. I mean, it's just great. That's it for this edition of the podcast. If you like it, share it. Subscribe if you're watching on X, YouTube, Rumble. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have the podcast with the audio edition. Subscribe to that everywhere you find audio podcasts. That's it for this edition. My name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Hammerling.
Remember, the fight to take back our country is not over yet, but the only way we win is we all stand and fight together.
Hold on, Frozen.